Hello, everyone. My name is Roy Potter, and this is the live stream version of the Potter Expositor. Today is the 3rd of April, 2018. And I kind of did this extemporaneously this morning. I've had a lot of questions about my last video, if I'm going to do more of that kind of thing, why I did it. And of course, there's some other things happening in the news. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, but I felt like it would probably be a good morning to address some of this. Whoa, there's, like I said for my on the title there, nothing is as it seems, and I'm very concerned about a number of things that a lot of us are taking for granted that seem to be a good sign of things moving forward. Well, I have a slightly different take, and I'm not going to get into it yet, but this is something I think that we all ought to consider under the circumstances. I believe the chat is on. Let me double check. It is. Good morning, everybody. As you come in, I want to say hi. Let me know if the sound is okay. I keep working on this overmodulation problem, and I'm not sure what to make of it. I'm going to reduce it down just a little bit more to see if it helps. Just let me know if you can hear it and if it's, isn't overmodulating. I have, like I say, a really bad problem. It sounds great? Okay, good. Well, we'll go ahead. All right. I want to start off. The name of this is Nothing Is As It Seems. And I'm only going to mention this first thing because I think it's indicative of where we are. If any of you have been watching Unirock or Lift the Veil with Nathan, I'm not sure what Unirock's real name is. Both of those are YouTubers, but everybody has their different take on different people under different subjects, different topics. And just because we don't agree with somebody on one topic doesn't mean that we throw them away. I see that happening on YouTube quite a bit, and I'm not doing this to defend myself. I just see people where when a YouTuber or any news agency, even the mainstream media, if they say something you don't like, then you just get rid of them. That's really intellectual hypocrisy, because all you're doing then is listening to people who verify what you want to hear. And that's no way to approach the world. That is no way to approach the world. And I realize that that's been the driving force behind the mainstream media, at least, and to some extent the alternative media. That people want to listen to the news to verify their own biases, their own opinions and prejudices, or how they think the world is, or their worldview, or whatever. But that trap is the one that gets us in a lot of trouble. So you've heard me from time to time encourage you to look at other people. I'm not here to gather followers. As I've told you a long time ago, I'm really not into that. What I'm into is making sure that I stand by principle, and that I encourage you to seek out the truth. And sometimes that's a hard thing to do, because who knows what the truth is? Well, you got to at least start, right? It's kind of like the physician who's looking for, a disease. You're sick, and they come in. They can't treat it until they know what it is. So in order to find out what it is, you need to inform yourself, and that's really where we are. But we're getting ready to go into another phase here, and it's getting dangerous. So anyway, I talk about these other people quite a bit, and you know that I've encouraged you to go listen to other folks. Well, there's this whole fight between AIM and Corsi, and all that whole thing that's going on. And this isn't really national news, but I just had to address it because I listened to Nathan of Lift the Veil yesterday, and I've been listening to Unirock and Lift the Veil for quite a long time. Not often, but from time to time. And again, there are times when I think, wow, this is really great stuff, and other times, well, but I don't shut them down. I don't just ignore them. I still keep track of that, as I do with so many others, and other sources as well. I don't want you to think I stay just on YouTube, but this whole argument that's going back and forth is indicative of where our country is, and nothing is as it seems. At any rate, I think Uni and Nathan are approaching this thing in a comprehensive, detailed, thorough, honest manner. That's how I feel about it. They're just stating how it looks from their perspective. Uni is very much into computers. Apparently, he knows quite a bit about it. Appears to be an expert. And Nathan, he just kind of looks through and says, okay, well, what do I see? At any rate, the reason why I bring them up is because they have raised some really serious questions about some emails that supposedly came from Dr. Corsi, and I guess that they have substantiated that they came from Dr. Corsi. Now, I've said for a long time that this entire Q thing was going to get out of control, that it was going to become a cult of sorts, that it would be used by people for all sorts of reasons. Some that want to give the truth, some that, see an opportunity to make money, some to cause discord. And discord, everybody talks about discord as if it's a bad thing. It isn't, as long as it stays in the realm of debate. Because, as I've said, debate is important. But when it gets to the point where it's discord and that you're calling people names, and I don't mean names like somebody does something stupid or does something to you personally and you call them out as a bastard or whatever. I'm not talking about that kind of name calling. I'm talking about when you disagree with someone, not about if they attack you and call you a name or something and you retort, that's different. But if someone is saying something about a political situation or religious situation or something, and somebody says, "Oh, you're a freaking blasphemer," or "You're an asshole," or whatever it is they say, based upon your opinion, in the debate, that's when it's wrong. I have called people names, but it's not over things like that. It's usually when they attack myself or others unjustifiably, or using false testimony, or just gossip or whatever else. And usually it involves them using some type of a horrible attack. So getting into a debate is not what's wrong, but discord is a bad thing. But don't confuse debate with discord. Okay? Not agreeing with somebody is not discord. Okay? That's debate, and that's absolutely 100% necessary if this republic is going to survive. Well, it's already hanging by a thread, if even that any longer. I think they've already snipped the thread, but you get my point. So if you want to know kind of what the problem is between AIM and Corsi and this whole situation with the Q deal, you might want to give those guys a listen. And don't shut out AIM yet. I know AIM's different with their Sophia website on their spiritual studies and things like that. Again, you can't throw people away based upon those types of things. AIM's done a lot of good work, and I'll stand up for them. I think when Douglas, and he didn't know he was being recorded apparently, which might be a problem for Jason Goodman if in fact Douglas wanted to pursue that. But regardless, what I heard there, Douglas saying to Jason in that one interview, or not interview, but phone call that started this whole thing really, was a little out of hand, and I'll tell Douglas that, and I think he'll understand it. I realize he might think he had some reasons for it, and he thought he was in a private conversation. I said in a deal about another situation that if you're going to have a fight with somebody, do it out of sight of everyone. Go in the backyard, duke it out, and then come out. Do it behind the scenes. Don't do it out in front, unless it's debate over real principle. So Douglas may have thought that he was doing that. So I have to give him a little leeway there. Still, I got to admit it was a little rough. But at this point in time, I still have to say that AIM is putting out some fantastic information. And I've come to monograph Monty's defense in the past. And I will again, because the types of accusations that are made against him are not in line with debate. that's more in the line of hate and discord and psyop operations and those types of things. Alex Jones. I'm very critical of Alex Jones, but I still say to go and partake in his information. And then we could go on down the list. So at any rate, I just want to clear that up and give Unirock and Lift the Veil with Nathan a heads up for all of you folks, so that if you have some questions, they're really dissecting that pretty well. My own, and it would have to be an opinion. I don't have the documents. I mean, I've seen the documents, but I don't have the ability to really track some of that down. I don't know what the actual IT details are, but apparently the circumstances with the emails from Corsi are legit as far as having come from him. But I'll let you make up your own mind. Please go watch them. The bottom line in all this is that it is out of hand. These things get usurped by people who otherwise would have good intentions, and then they start getting off the track. Frankly, I haven't really heard any decoding going on that is of any efficacy as far as I'm concerned. And then, of course, there's the very likely possibility that intelligence agencies are heavily involved in all of this whole situation now. And it's best if you go back to your own sources. Try to glean things from what else is going on from other sources in the world. I'll just say it that way. So I know I'm kind of beating around the bush on that because I don't want to sound like I'm forcing anybody or looking like I'm trying to intimidate people to do something or not do something. I'm just saying, open up your vision, take another look, see what's really happening. Some of the things, as I said before, that are happening, this whole thing, are very much like a religion. If people attack your religion, whether or not they're right, and attack, criticize your religion, you get defensive and other things happen. Real discord starts. And I warned about that from the start, and it's really gotten out of hand, and I don't know if it can be salvaged at this point. I think this was supposed to be the end result, actually. Okay, enough on that. Let's talk about the situation with Jeff Sessions assigning this Utah U.S. Attorney John Huber to this entire situation, investigating the FBI and the DOJ. I put out a tweet. This is when I first found out about John being put in this position. I put out a tweet on Twitter it's probably been a week or two ago. I knew John Huber. John Huber, at the time that I met him, he was the West Valley City, Utah city prosecutor. If I remember the timeline, I think after law school, I think he went to the Weber County Attorney's Office, but then he became the city prosecutor in West Valley City, and then was appointed by Obama under the behest of the former U.S. Attorney for Utah to become the new U.S. Attorney. And this was, about 18 years ago or so, 15 years ago, something like that. But the point is I worked with Huber. He was the prosecutor in many of the cases that I submitted for things like theft, fraud, some other things. And I wasn't a police officer at the time, but I was working for a security. I was the director of security for this particular company, very large company. And I was probably in Huber's office several times a week. Never, seemed like a fine guy, I'm sure he's Mormon. He grew up, I guess, in Magna, Utah. a lot of things about him being a Utah native. I'm glad he was able to stay in Utah if that's what he wanted. Never saw anything that would really give me any cause for concern. But at the same token, I wouldn't say that he was necessarily outstanding. Okay, and when you work with attorneys, you kind of get the feel for who the really, really good ones are and who aren't. Not saying he has nefarious purposes or anything like that. I'm not trying to judge any of that. However, and this is the point of my tweet, I do not understand. By the way, how's the modulation going here, guys? Let me ask that before I go any further. I want to make sure that it's not doing all that crazy stuff when it overmodulates. You know, I heard Lionel having that problem the other day too, so I guess it does happen to other people. And this microphone isn't, I wouldn't say it's the very best. It's great. Okay, good. I'll just keep going. When I heard, and of course we had suspicions that there was a DOJ U.S. attorney somewhere involved in the process because of the way the whole thing with Strzok and Page, pre-step, all of that was handled back last summer and into the fall. So as several people, including Tracy Beans, has said, we saw these fingerprints that there was something else going on behind the scenes for many months. And that was true, obviously. That John Huber has been working on this apparently since sometime last summer. But again, I asked myself why, knowing what I know about Utah, knowing what I know about the deep state anchored here in Utah, and their influence. This is one of the many, many centers of the military-industrial complex, including the intelligence complex. The NSA facility is down in Bluffdale, Utah. You all have heard about it. It's the big collection center. We have military posts all over the place. The FBI has a big presence here. I mean, it's really, really crazy. Not to mention the fact that Utah itself, the state, has a history of bowing down and even bending over for the feds. It's hardly a Republican. I mean, it's a Republican state by political party, but as far as a Republican form of government, it lacks substantially because it's done so many things to get along with the federal government. Now, here recently, they were trying to get their land back from the BLM, and I think that's still ongoing to some extent. President Trump helped that out a little bit. So, there are some positive things, and I'm not saying everything in Utah is bad. Every state has its corruption and all that, but I happen to know from having been a police officer in that state, having served in the military in that state, having dealt with the powers that be in that state, that they are like peas in a pod with the feds, with the deep state. Many of the people here, not many, a lot of the people in the government and in the ecclesiastical institutions here are in bed with the deep state, and in fact are part of the deep state. Now, what is the deep state? Well, we've heard AIM talk about that. We've heard Field McConnell talk about that. We want to get more precise when we say who the deep state is. Well, the controlling mechanism between the New World Order, between the CFR, between those types of powers that be, and the bureaucracies in the federal government is the SES, the Senior Executive Service. We know that now. I'm not pretending like I found that out on my own. I did not. I knew there was a mechanism there, but I didn't really know what it was. And now the light is being shined on it by AIM, by Field McConnell, who's been working on it for years, by the way. They should get a lot of this credit, all of it, really. And so that whole organization, I won't detail it here. Most of you should know what it is. If you don't, go look it up. An unelected, appointed, basically, as AIM puts it, it's its own, it has its own flag, its own, its own basic, it's basically a military organization, the way it's run. And AIM, and I think even Field would say that it's very similar to the Nazi SS, the way it was run and how it was staffed. Now, the SES explains a lot of things. It's the reason why the whole thing with the Bundy Ranch happened. It was able to give cover to Clinton, to Harry Reid, the Uranium One deal, the Chinese transfer of land in Nevada. All of that, the SES is able to get in there and to stop anybody in the bureaucracy who might think that they want to do something about these corrupt practices. Will put a stop to it. Have they ever stepped in and done anything right? I don't know. Looking at the condition of our government today, I would doubt it. I don't think so. Especially when you consider that of the 10,000 or so, it's right around in there, about 10,000 or so, over 8,000 were appointed directly by Obama. And then you have the Obama Foundation, the whole shadow government that Obama is considered the president of. This is very serious, and it is countering the legitimately elected government of the United States, President Trump, etc. But it's huge. So where am I going with this thing with Huber? Well, apparently I have not seen. I've seen the list, the SES list. I haven't had time to go through it piece by piece. But apparently John Huber's on the SES list. I can't swear to that, but that's what I've heard. Regardless, the fact that Jeff Sessions would choose a U.S. attorney in Utah to do this job, I was highly suspect right from the beginning. This is not, in my opinion, after I've read what Professor Turley has said about this whole situation with, instead of having a special prosecutor, having a DOJ attorney do this, which I kind of agreed with as far as getting the ball rolling. But I keep hearing, I read through the Washington Times article on this whole thing with Huber, and they're giving him all these accolades and all this stuff. Huber's not a big heavy hitter, ladies and gentlemen. He's not. He never has been. His big claim to fame was the firearms violations that occurred during the shooting at Trolley Square back in like 2005 or somewhere in there. Guy came into Trolley Square, just shot the place up, killed about, I don't know, a dozen people, half a dozen people, I don't remember. It wasn't just an act of terrorism, it was just mass murder. Basically, I don't think there were any political aims there. I don't remember the details. But that was not a difficult case to investigate. And yet that's the big example for John Huber's prosecutorial abilities, his prowess. I'm sorry, it doesn't cut it. This thing is much more serious than that. We needed an attorney who could get in there and really do the job. Frankly, what I think this is, there were ties between ecclesiastical organizations and the Utah state government with the federal government, and particularly with people like Clinton and Obama on the land grabs, on the surveillance state, a lot of things. And I'm going to say it, the ties to pedophilia. I am not accusing John Huber of that. Quite the contrary, I don't believe that would be the case at all. However, he is there, I believe, to protect those forces, not to go after them. Now, he could prove me wrong. But to select a Utah U.S. attorney for this is a major, major warning, red flag, concern. So, if anything has convinced me that Jeff Sessions is not what people would like him to be, that he's this big savior helping Trump, this move, in my estimation, proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that he does not have President Trump's and the Republic's concerns at heart. I won't go into it any further than that, because in order for me to substantiate what I'm saying, I would have to explain some things that I know about that I have alluded to in the past, but I don't want to put them up here at this point in time. Suffice it to say that I was very close to several investigations of some really bad stuff in ecclesiastical power structures and in the Utah state government. And I'm very aware of that cover-up. And John Huber, unfortunately, would be the man to assist that to continue. Orange juice this morning. I had a message here from a friend saying it looks like I'm getting better. Yeah, I hope so. And she was very sick too, so I hope you're doing better as well. Okay, I want to take this a little further. I'm going to say something else. I mean, we could talk about Syria. You know, Trump's coming out of Syria. He's saying he's going to do that. Man, he should have done that a year ago. You know, I was really surprised that General Boykin said, "Oh, don't pull out of Syria too fast. You'll have the same problem with Iraq." That's what I mean. Nothing is ever as it seems. Are we a republic? Are we a constitutional republic and not an empire, or are we an empire? We are so inconsistent. And it's all to do about investments in weapons and in oil and in, you know, destroying humanity. Yeah, I know. I get on one when I get going. Okay. This isn't going to be an easy topic to discuss either. I don't have any hardcore evidence, but I'm starting. I discussed this with some other investigators probably a month ago, something like that. And I got to tell you, we are reaching 25,000. It may have even gone over now. 25,000 sealed indictments around the country. And I hear all of these patriots saying, "This is so great. You know, wait till they go after these guys. Wait till they all get picked up and go to Gitmo or whatever." I'm not sure that's what's happening. I'm not sure that's what's happening. And so I'm going to point out a few things. President Trump is not in control of the government. I hate to tell you, but he is not. He may be in control of the largest portion of the DOD, but nothing else. The few things that he's gotten done, like I've said many, many times, and I praise him for it, I laud him for it, I thank him for it, but everything that he's done can be reversed the day after they remove him from office if they succeed in doing that. Because the evil structure is still inside the government. Do I expect him to change it overnight? No. Is he working behind the scenes? Well, that's what we keep hearing from all of these researchers, all of these guys and ladies who you know, want to run up the flag of victory that it's just around the corner. 25,000 sealed indictments. Do you think Trump is doing those? Do you think he's having that investigation done? Or that it's for him? Well, I have another theory. I've looked at the map of where all of these are, and it's true, a lot of them aren't in democratically controlled areas. Some of the largest numbers are. And that would lead some of these other researchers to believe that it's Trump's team going after these Democratic operatives who are really traitors, criminals with the, you know, uranium one, and, you know, real Russian collusion, real espionage and all that. Who's in power right now? I just talked about that with the SES at the very beginning of this video. Who controls the court system? I know, Trump got a Supreme Court nominee in there that's supposedly pretty good. I'm still having some questions about that. It was certainly better than anything the Dems have given us, but in reality, and he's had a lot of good judges appointed to the federal system. I realize that. But who really is filing these sealed indictments? Who's in power? If the SES can control the court system, which they can, through the orders of the powers that be, Clinton, Soros, Rockefeller, Kissinger, etc., whatever, then 25,000 indictments over this period of time, I doubt very seriously if this is anything that's being done by anybody friendly to Trump. It would seem to me that this goes along with the Mueller investigation, because remember what they said, the Democrats, the leftists, they said, we're going to accuse all these people of Russian collusion. We're going to get the president, we're going to get the members of Congress that were Republicans that rode in on this train with Trump, and all of the supporters that we can go after. Ladies and gentlemen, I have some suspicions at this point in time, I can't prove it, but that these 25,000 indictments are not for pedophiles, there might be a few, are not for traitors in the sense that we would understand, are not for the criminals of Uranium One, Chinese espionage, human trafficking, all of those. Because honestly, who is Trump getting to do this if it's not the military? And if it is the military, they wouldn't need to use the court system. Is it John Huber? No way in hell. No way in hell is this John Huber doing this. So I'm concerned that this is an operation being done parallel to Mueller's investigation to go after Trump supporters when they take Trump down. Wow, that's way off, I realize, but it doesn't make any sense any other way. We've seen no arrests. Oh, it's going to happen when they're ready, There have been arrests of pedophiles. There have been a lot of them. President Trump has released a lot of children. Roseanne Barr talked about that. Craig Sawyer's been talking about it. Yes, there have been a lot of movements in that direction. But 25,000 indictments, you wouldn't have to keep those indictments secret, sealed. How hard would it be for the U.S. Marshals, the FBI? Oh, yeah, the FBI, yeah. Going after these pedophile networks practically overnight. The investigations have already been done. I mean, it's obvious. They've been arresting these people. They've been finding these kids. No, I think that this may be the next step of the leftist Marxist plan under the color of law to actually indict people for possible sedition. Russian, not that being friendly with the Russians is wrong. There's no law that says that you can't collude with the Russians. There's no such thing. But if you speak well of Trump's efforts in the Russian attempt to help relations or whatever, and those types of things, and a grand jury where these indictments are coming from, wherever they're coming from, you don't need a whole lot of evidence. They don't work on probable cause. They don't work even on reasonable suspicion. It's almost the civil side of law, a preponderance. As Alex Jones has often said, you could indict a ham sandwich. So, I keep seeing this number climb. We see no arrests. Who's in control of the government? It is not Trump. I'm sorry, it is not Trump. The only way he can get control of it is if he doesn't get assassinated and makes it through his first term and somehow miraculously holds on to the two houses of Congress, of the Congress. And that's starting to look more doubtful every day, despite all of the, gleeful joyful claims of so many on the conservative side who think that that's the way it's going. I'm not certain that that's the case. So I'm just saying, I don't think that this is what it seems. As I said in the name of this video, nothing is as it seems. So we need to keep a close eye on this. You need to keep your communications networks open. Does that mean that they're going to move and do this? No, I don't think so. But it is a dark cloud over our heads, in my estimation. Now, if things change here and Trump actually starts getting active, I don't see how he can. I don't trust the OIG. I'm sorry, I don't. Despite all that's been said, I don't trust the OIG. I don't trust Sessions. I don't trust Wray. I don't trust really many. So just be aware that this may not be what we've all hoped it would be. I'm being kind of nebulous there because I don't have the proof. This is a gut feeling at looking at the details of the number, the timing, what else is going on in the government, who controls the government right now, who controls the court and law enforcement apparatus. And it is not Trump. It isn't. This coup has gone. It's still well underway, and you know about Bill Ayers and the Weather Underground, and the statement that they wanted to put all the people that wouldn't convert to Marxism, leftist Marxism, into re-education camps. I'm just very suspicious. Okay. All right. Last thing before I get into the chat room, I hope you all have been enjoying yourselves there. Again, I did that video the other day on Easter, and it was the greatest gift. And as everybody should know, I'm not a traditional born-again Christian. You can find fault with that. I really don't care. I've spent a lifetime on this. I don't go merely on the emotions of things. You might be surprised for me to say that. But at any rate, I did that video and I talked about some things, and people are saying, well, can you tell us a little bit more about it? Can you do more of this religion series? and I plan on that. You can look on my site here and you'll see that I've made a playlist now called the religion series, the religion or spiritual series. And I divide those two up because religion is kind of the organized, in my estimation, the organized part of it. The spiritual, however, is where I believe that you should be. Not that you can't belong to a religious organization, that's fine. But real, true spirituality doesn't come from a religion. It comes from your heart and your mind being connected to God. And there are other ways to do that besides going to a church, okay? There'll be arguments both ways on that. But at any rate, I brought up some things in that video about Egyptology, about Hebrew, the connections between the Egyptians and the Israelites. And I was sure that it was going to disturb a lot of people. Some can see it, and many don't. And I'm not trying to force an opinion for you to change your opinion one way or the other. Truth is something you have to discover on your own. You look out there and you find a nugget here and you find a nugget there, and you have a pouch full of nuggets that are worth something, right? You don't always usually get them in one place, despite what people claim. I've already been down that road. I know a lot about cults. I know a lot about religious control organizations. I've been there. I've experienced all of that. So what I did many years ago was I did an extensive study on the historical aspects of the Hebrews, of the Old Testament, the New Testament, and other religions and their interconnections and communications. And yeah, I have a slightly different take, but it's based on that study. And so I put out that video the other day for Easter because I do believe that the resurrection occurred. I do believe that the Shroud of Turin, a lot of people say, you believe in the Shroud of Turin? Man, I tell you what, because something is that immensely fantastic doesn't mean, first of all, well, it doesn't mean either thing. It doesn't mean that it's true. It doesn't mean that it's false. It doesn't mean that it's, a deceit. You have to look at the whole thing, and I have come to the conclusion myself that the Shroud of Turin is what it purports to be. It's not it's not Jacques de Molay. No, it's not. That theory was put forward some time ago, but it can't be for a number of reasons, and I'm not here to defend or to that whole thing. Go study it out for yourself. No, something significant happened 2,000 years ago, and that cloth is the one thing beyond our faith, our hope that coincides with this event. Now, in that regard, again, people have asked me to give more information. I don't know how I'll proceed with that. I'm not sure how I want to. But, and this isn't to sell it, I've shown it to you before, but I want you to see the book. You can go on Amazon and get this book. It's getting some reflection there. Can you see that? Okay. This is on Amazon under my name, or you can go to The Crimson Thread, The Struggle to Become Jesus During the Revolt Against Rome. It's usually best to type it in because there are a lot of Crimson Thread books out there. That's why I have the subtitle as well. I'll be honest, there are a couple things in there I would change if I rewrote it today, but they don't significantly change my position on the subject. Now, this is written from an historical perspective. That's not to say that I didn't incorporate some information from the Old and New Testaments in here, because I did. I drew it from a lot of sources: Josephus, Eusebius, Pliny. And a lot of you won't know who those people are, but the fact is it was an historical compilation. And this is an historical novel. I'm not a novelist. It's not a page burner. As a matter of fact, I wrote it too much like a PhD rather than a novelist. But if you go ahead and you want to know the position that I have, this is the book to read. It doesn't take away from I'm going to use this word carefully here, the divinity of Jesus. What it does is it puts him back into his time period about what was really going on. To be Jewish in those days didn't mean necessarily, well, it was more of a national identity. Judea, the place of the Jews, was kind of like being an American. So to be called a Jew didn't mean that you were necessarily from the tribe of Judah. And this book gets into that and explains a little bit more about who I think this man was and what his real mission was, and his connections to ancient Israel and to Egypt, which is kind of a more detailed explanation of what I did on my video here the other day for Easter, The Greatest Gift. I had a friend once who said, and I think this pretty well says it very, very, very well. He said, Jesus was the first man to realize the benefits of his religion for himself, and in turn made it a gift to all of us. So if you're interested, I'm sorry I have to tell you that you have to go to Amazon to get it. I wish I could just give it away, and I don't want to use my YouTube channel as a marketing tool. But as I've said several times in the past when people have asked me questions about it and we brought up this book, that's just an easy way to see. And you're not going to like all of it, especially if you're solid into the normal traditional viewpoint of Christianity. There are some things in here that will disturb you, but again, realize that it's written from an historical perspective. It's not a rehash of the New Testament, and I've said that before when I've talked about it. That would have been a waste of time. Okay, you can go read the New Testament if you want to read the New Testament. This is the treatment from an historical perspective. So I'll leave it there. Let's go to the chat room and see if anybody's saying anything. Like I said, this was kind of a last-minute deal. Okay, let's see what we have here. All right. Actually, let me see if I'm waiting for arrests. Yeah, this thing has been put off and put off with so many excuses. 25. Can you imagine if they started moving on 25,000 people? No, I'm not saying that Jesus wasn't the Messiah. Go read the book. As a matter of fact, as I said in my my YouTube thing the other day on Easter, the greatest gift. There are actually 3 messiahs. That blows most people. And Messiah only means anointed crown prince, to be king. That's really all it means. Mashiach means you're anointed to be the king. So there's more to it than that. But there was an Aaronic Mashiach. There was a suffering servant Mashiach, and there is the Davidic king Mashiach. There are 3 of them. 3 of them. And it's a little different than what most people might think. Okay, somebody says, as long as you aren't adding to the Bible. Wrong, 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 wrong. Sorry to tell you about that. That warning in Deuteronomy not to add to or take from, and that warning in Revelations to not add to or take from, is not the whole Bible. The Bible is a collection of books. If it was true that you don't add to or take from the Bible, nothing after Deuteronomy could have been added. It's not about the Bible. It's about the words in the law at that point in time. You don't add to or take away from those words. It'd be the same with the book of Revelations. You don't change the book, the words there. You don't add to or take from that script, that body of writing, not the entire Bible itself. Or you would never have added the New Testament. No. If we say that God can't give us more information today and that it can't become written down, it can't be written down, that my position is that's incorrect, and that is limiting God to your own biases and prejudices. No, you should go look for other things outside of this collection of books that was agreed upon by a very corrupt Roman organization called the Council of Nicaea. And there were changes in it, even by the books they chose. And I said the other day, not too long ago, that there were 2 books that almost didn't make it in. And that was the Song of Solomon, and I said the other was the Gospel of James. I didn't mean that. It's actually the Epistle of James that almost didn't make it in because it was just too much outside what the Council of Nicaea wanted to push on the world as that would get along with the Roman Empire. So everything that happened after the destruction of the temple in 70 AD was pretty much pushed by the Romans and by Rabbinic Judaism, which did not have its foundation in the spiritual values and etc. of Israel, but to placate the Roman Empire from the Council of Yavna on. So a lot of crazy things happened back then. So no, and I know those kinds of explanations get people upset, but that's what I mean. You know, if you really believe in God, you're going to understand He's going to work with different people according to their capacity. I even cite that in the Quran. You know that God, it's the only passage I cite in the Quran, that God will never test a person beyond their capacity, and I believe that. It's one of the few things that are in the Quran that are right. And so God's going to work with people according to their condition. And you don't have a right to demand that they follow your dogma to get to where you think that they should be going. If you're doing that, you're doubting God's power, prima facie. If you say that they have to accept your understanding, you're denying them their own personal relationship with God. Who are you to put yourself between them and God, based upon your interpretation of what some other pastor or person told you about this? Don't do that. That's putting yourself up as a demagogue. And Christians are particularly bad about it. Actually, every religion is. You find that in Judaism and in Islam, of course, really bad. But in Christianity, it's subtle, by the most part. No. Okay, here we go again. I'm going to say this one more time, Willie Waterberg. You're saying the Bible says, woe to them who add or remove words. No. The Bible is a collection of books. I just said, if they write that in Deuteronomy, it's in Deuteronomy, I think it's in the 25th chapter, then that would mean that everything else after Deuteronomy that couldn't have been. No, you're wrong. You don't understand. It's talking about the words in the law. In that, see, that's the reason why you don't know Hebrew. You don't know Hebrew and you don't know Greek. And you're sitting here telling people that they have to understand it from the King James perspective, and especially your understanding. No, it does not say that you can't have more scripture. It does not say that, okay, you cannot change the words in the Torah. You can't. That's correct. You can't add to or take from those words from Genesis to the end of Deuteronomy. You can't. That's true. You can't change the words in the book of Revelations. You can't add to or take away from the words in that book. But if you think that this hasn't been altered, and this is my working Bible as I've shown you before, if you don't think that you're learning from a book that hasn't had words added and taken away, you're fooling yourself. Oh, but God's so powerful he could do that. Really? Then he's powerful enough to save a person who doesn't believe in your dogma. Okay? Views on the Book of Enoch. Well, there are a couple of different variations on the Book of Enoch. It's hard to say which one might be the original, but they're all pretty close. Also the Book of Jasher, for instance. Then you've got like the Maccabees. You got a lot of stuff out there. Do I think that the Book of Enoch was written by Enoch? Probably not. But oral traditions were passed down, and then people would write under those pseudonyms. And frankly, what a lot of people don't know is that many of the books that you think were written by the apostles or the people that are claiming to be these folks in the New Testament, or even in the Old, really weren't those people. Isaiah, for instance, was probably added to at least the last few chapters, long after Isaiah was gone, by another prophet. Oh yeah, Truth Bullet. I asked the Q cult if Q predicted Huber. The mob attacked me. Welcome to the club. You must be doing something right, right? Okay. Something's going on in Washington State. They're saying the legislators should burn. I'll bet you it has something to do with the either immigration or with the Second Amendment, right? Oh yeah, there's some problems with. Of course, there's some problems with Josephus. Of course there are. That's why you use historical method, historiography, historical analysis, all of those things. I know that. All right, but that's all right. We'll just leave it alone. Gospel of Thomas. Gospel of Thomas is part of the Nag Hammadi codices. They're the Gnostic writings. The history of the Gnostics is very interesting because they were basically disaffected Jews. After the Second Temple, they basically thought that maybe they were, and this isn't all of them, there were different sects of Gnostics as well, but basically the idea that they had been mistakenly worshiping a god by the name of, they called him Yaldabaoth, which is kind of interesting. Anyway, and that there was the demiurge, and anyway, it gets into some really complicated things, but there are a lot of good nuggets in the Gnostic Gospels because they were written fairly close, about the 3rd century, late 2nd to early 3rd centuries. So they're very close historically to the events. I like them. The Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Judas, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. Again, probably written under pseudonyms by not the real people, but people that had the oral information that had been passed down through that at that time. And yes, I find them very good. There are some problems in there. They talk about the archons and some other things. They're very, they're a far cry from what regular Christianity would be. So what I do when I look at the Gnostic Gospels, I use some of that material. Some of it actually shows up in here. Use some of that material, but I balance it against First of all, the law is given in the Torah, which can't have words added to or taken away from that. First 5 books of the Bible, in Christianity known as the Pentateuch, in Judaism known as the Torah. Yeah, I balance everything with that, and so using that, I usually come to what I consider to be a fairly decent understanding of the truth of the matter. Am I going to be 100%? No. As a matter of fact, I heard Lionel say the other day, and it's very right. He says, "Oh, history is so wonderful if it were just true." And historians, if anybody, know that statement is a fact, because history is written by people that have an agenda. It's not like something that you could put and use the scientific method on, put under a microscope, or test, using the scientific method. We have a thing called an historical method, which is very similar, but it's not foolproof, because you're dealing with people's agendas. And of course, I know about Josephus, and he had to write for the Romans because they were going to kill him if he didn't. Of course, I know that, and he also had biases towards the Herodian court. Yeah, I know about all that, but there's still information there that when you balance it against other sources and other things, you can kind of come to a better understanding of what the real truth is. Okay, this is interesting. Brendan Hall. I didn't mean this to get into too much of a religious thing, but he says the Hebrew is messed up because they did not space the letters and wrote in codes. Well, the Hebrew's not messed up. It was done that way deliberately. And I've talked about that even the first chapter or first verse of Genesis, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. That's because the people that translated the Bible came to that consensus of agreement that that's what it'll say. The fact of the matter is that those translations can be nearly infinite in all directions. Does that mean that they're not true? No. It means that you get greater levels of understanding when you don't force on the Hebrew your idea of punctuation, sentence structure, paragraphing, sectioning off in chapters, etc., etc. When it was first written down, the Torah, it was written with no spaces between the letters or the words from start to finish. It was one run-on word. And there was a reason for that. And jewels, hidden, there's a quote, it is the glory of God to conceal a thing. It is the honor of kings to search it out. I think that's in Psalms or Proverbs, one of those. It's very true. So they're not hidden from you for any other reason than your level of understanding. It's like I said a few minutes ago, God deals with us according to our capacity. So when you show the effort that you want to get to the next level, you'll be given the tools, the information to help you get there. But it's in your own Bible. Knock and it shall be given, right? Be open to you. Ask and it shall be given. Knock and it shall be open. If you don't know enough to knock, you probably won't get it. Okay, so don't judge other people and where they are based upon where you are. They could be way ahead of you, or they could be way behind you. Okay, either way, it's not your position to judge them. And the Hebrew isn't messed up. It was done that way on purpose for a very wise reason. No, I'm not going to block Barry. Barry's been around too long. When he first came on, I thought, there was some agreement between he and I. I think he's a Jehovah's Witness, if I'm not mistaken. Barry, I used to be a Jehovah's Witness. Now he'll go away because witnesses can't have contact with people that used to be witnesses because they're now basically excommunicated. They're anathema. That's a Catholic term, but that's basically what it is. And we're going to be annihilated. So thanks, Barry. He's said some obnoxious things, but it's kind of like I don't know how old Barry is, but two old guys there sitting about and arguing things. It's just part of the play, so no big deal. I only block people when they use false accusations, bear false witness, call people really really bad names just for their difference of opinion, or if they're trying to hurt their feelings or character assassinate them. Those are the people I block. Disagreements in subject matter, it can get heated, but there's no reason to take any kind of, you know, punishment on somebody like that. All right, let's see. Border invasion. Wow. Well, you saw this coming, right? Is Mexico going to stop it? I don't know. This whole thing is designed to destroy. You think that taking down the current world order is a good thing, but you lock your door at night, at least you should. You have a barrier in your home. There's a process for you to allow people into your home. There's a process, and we have a process here in this country. Is it the best? No. The country's all right, but the process may or may not be all that good, but that's the process. And this is an invasion. The Islamic thing is an invasion. This thing coming up from the south is an invasion. It's not immigration. It's not multicultural enrichment. It's force by other powers using these to destabilize us. And yes, we do have a right to protect ourselves from it. That brings up the whole thing with Trump. And is he going to use the military on the border? He should. I called for it, as I said, in my 2011 documentary, Borders, Mexican Drug War, Insurgency. I called for it then. I'm not sure that the wall can't, no matter what kind of wall you put in, it's or barrier, it's of no use unless there are eyes on it. You must have constant surveillance on a barrier, or it's absolutely no good. And will the military go along with that? I already explained my position on that. I don't know if they will. I don't know if the Pentagon will really go along with that or not, or the military-industrial complex, because they want wars to destabilize the whole world and to spend money and to kill off your progeny. Well, I would love there to be one Earth, everybody together, but it can't be done under the geopolitical system that is in place today. It can't be done that way. It has to be done in an entirely different way, and the manipulations of the New World Order and the powers that be, their answer to that isn't righteous, and it won't work either in the long run because it's a farce, it's a deceit. Okay. Yeah. Somebody's asking me, is it a wolf or a lion that lays down with the lamb in Isaiah? Look, I know all about this Mandela effect. If you're trying to get me to go there, I understand how the Mandela effect works. It's a psyop. It's really, we're seeing that used today in the Q phenomenon. We're seeing the Mandela effect in that. There were pictures, there were people that made pictures of a lion laying down with a lamb, but in fact it does say wolf, okay? And it's that way in the Hebrew, okay? It's that way in the Hebrew. So, that's playing with people's memories and the different artistry, everything that you're exposed to. But yes, in the Hebrew it does say wolf. The wolf will lay down with the lamb. It does say that. Okay. Okay, again, I probably said enough about the Q thing and AIM. I keep getting drawn back into that for a lot of reasons. I was probably one of the first. I mean, a lot of people were calling it a LARP even way, way back, but most of you should know that I was having questions through December, but certainly after the DEF CON 1 debacle, and I still call that was the biggest obvious error to me. That was when I really had the split, was DEF CON 1, because they were talking about something they didn't know. And I know about the sub and the missile and all that happened later, but that was really the dividing line for me. So, I only comment on it because at this point it's becoming such. And again, you can watch it if you want. You can get involved in that discussion if you want. I won't say anything bad about you. I'll just say that it's 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 not what it appears to be. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Passover goes through until Saturday night. This Saturday night. Okay. Well, I think we're done. How long have we been going here? Over an hour. And I didn't really plan on doing this anyway. I wanted to bring up, the book, like I was saying, in case you want to get it. I'm not doing this as a selling deal, but if you really want to know kind of my inside viewpoints on things, this is it. This will get you there. So I wish I could give it away. And I am concerned about Huber. I don't think that that's going to be the panacea everybody believes it's going to be. I don't believe that at all. Matter of fact, I'm anticipating that it's going to be a low-grade fireworks display, if at all. And then the 25,000 indictments, I don't have a good feeling about that any longer. I just don't. I think it's the system that's getting ready to try to take down the conservative base in the country. I hope I'm wrong. Okay, with all of that, I hope that that your life is good, that you're having abundance, that you're enjoying your loved ones, your family, etc. I hope you're learning. I hope that you're able to continue to gather information. And of course, prep, pray, and stay out of the way. Keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears to the ground. May God bless the constitutional republic of the United States of America. May God bless the Second American Revolution that is having serious, serious problems right now, despite the many gains that we've made. And may God bless President Donald Trump and all of his righteous endeavors. And may God distill upon him the spirit that he will have the power of discernment and courage to do the right thing. Thanks, everybody. We'll stop here. Appreciate you coming. I'm not sure when we'll do this again. It could be tomorrow. It could be a week from now. I really don't know. We'll just see how it goes. Okay? Out here.